Hello and welcome to the first in this series of videos on how to use Excel. This video is the first in the series and so looks at the very basics. So it's really aimed at those of you who have never used Excel before or maybe have only ever used it once or twice. But even then, even if you have used it a few times, I would suggest that you look at it briefly just to make sure that you're not missing anything. So, what am I going to do? Well, in this introductory video, what I'm aiming to do is run through a few of the basic features of Excel and produce something that looks a little bit like this. Excel itself is fairly straightforward. It's part of the Microsoft Office family of software. So you may actually recognize some of the basic functions from, say, Word or PowerPoint, other particular software that you've used. So I'm just going to move this one out of the way. I've already opened up another blank spreadsheet, which you do just by clicking on the Excel icon. It might ask you if you want to open an existing workbook or a new one. Just obviously click on whatever you want. So this is what Excel looks like when it first opens up. You can see across the top you've got the tabs, the same as you had in Word or PowerPoint. We're on the home one at the moment, which has got all the basic functions such as the font that you're using, bold and underline. It's got the alignment functions, the different color text and highlighting. It's also got one or two other useful little functions over here like formatting and auto sum, which we'll come on to fairly soon. And then over here, obviously, you've got all your file and your save as and so on and so forth. Now, I always recommend that you start off by saving your spreadsheet. So I'm going to save this one. I've already got an Excel videos folder set up, so I'm going to save it in that folder, and I'm going to call it Excel Video 1. And then click on save. So what that means is that every time I make a change now, I don't have to go into the file. I can just hit this save button up here. You might decide that you want to turn auto save on. Some people do, some people don't. I personally don't like it because I make a lot of changes going backwards and forwards, but you can if you want. It means that your work is saved periodically. You've got other functions going across here. I'm not really going to use any of them today, but I will just mention a few of them. Insert. We'll certainly be looking at things like pivot tables in the future. We'll certainly be looking at how to produce a chart using the recommended charts. Page layout, not going to use today, but you may wish to look at particularly the orientation, portrait versus landscape. Formulas, yes, we'll be using that a lot in future videos, not so much today, particularly this insert function over here. Auto sum we will be using today. Data, again, not really going to be using it. This is where you can import data from different sources. Probably the most useful thing here is actually this button over here on the right hand side, data analysis tools, which we will be looking at some point later in the series of videos. Review basically is if you are building a workbook, building a spreadsheet with other people. This helps you talk to each other and make notes and that type of thing. So there's different things there that you can do. So let's go back to the home. Right, so what I want basically, I'll just bring this other chart back, is a table looking something like this. Now, I'm saying this is a weekly sales figure tables. We've got weeks 1 to 10. I'm going to do weeks 1 to 12. And then you've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday across the total sales for the week, total sales for the different days down here. I put some values in and then I've calculated an average. So that's what I'm going to produce. So some basic terminology. These are the rows, these are the columns, and then you have different cells which you can refer to by the place that they are on the spreadsheet using the rows and the columns. So this cell here is cell A1, this one here is M1, and if we go down here we see it's M7. You can highlight rows by doing that, you can highlight columns rather, you can highlight rows by doing that just to see where you are if you want. So that's the basics of it. This little tab here is quite nice because if you click on that, it basically highlights the whole sheet, but we'll come on to that more at a later date. Anyway, you might have noticed to get rid of that highlighting, I just clicked on any cell. So that's what you do to do that. So I'm going to move this out of the way now so that I can actually see what I'm doing. So here we go. Here's my blank spreadsheet. Now the first thing that I want to do is put across the top here in the first row my different days of the week and my other headings. So literally just type in week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, even Thursday. And I'm just literally using the arrow keys actually to move over to the right. If I press the enter key when I've entered some text in, it takes it down. So it's very often easier to use the arrow keys. I want my total in there, I want value in there, and I want an average in there as the heading. So, oh, that's not right. Let's just correct the spelling on that. Excel does have a spelling function. I think you bring it up by using F7. So that's my headings. Don't really want them left justified as that is, so I'm just going to highlight all of the cells. Literally what I do then is just literally click on cell I, hold down my left mouse button, and then move over to the right until I've highlighted them all, release my left mouse button, and then I come up here to these alignment tools and I just press center, and so all of a sudden they're aligned like that. Now the next thing to do is to put in the number of weeks. So I could go week 1, week 2, week 3, but that's a little bit laborious. I can undo that by clicking on the undo button, and that takes me back up to there, or I could just have highlighted those 3 cells by holding the left button down and moving the mouse, and then clear contents. Either way works just fine. So I put one back in there. Now you see how when I click on the box, it's got this green kind of box around it when I click on the cell with this little dot in the bottom right hand corner. Now normally my cursor when you're moving around on an Excel spreadsheet is a little white cross. When I move it over that bottom right corner, you see that it turns into a little black cross. Get it like that, get it so that it looks like a little black cross. Press down the left mouse button, hold it down, and then just drag the mouse in the direction you want to go, which in this case is down. Now I want to go down to cell number 13 because I want 12 weeks, and then release. And hey presto, there are all those cells filled, ones, all with ones, but I don't want all ones. I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So you see this little box here, this little dialog box that's come up. If I hold the cursor over that and then drop down on the little drop down arrow and choose fill series, it changes so that it's basically copied 1, 2, 3, 4, so on, which is actually what I want. So that basically, I just click over here and that basically gives me what I want down that left hand column. I want the word total in there as well. Do I want these numbers on the right like that? Not really. I'd rather have them on the left. So if I highlight them all like that and then just click on left like that, and then down on the left, and I want the total to stand out, so I just highlight that cell and click B for bold. Obviously if I click I, I get italics, underline, so on and so forth. So I want bold, just click like that. So now what I want to try and do is populate or fill in all of the figures from my weekly sales on each day through here. Now normally you would do this by taking actual real sales records, for example, if you're working in a shop, or you might, for example, count up if you're working in a restaurant the number of meals that were ordered, that type of thing. I'm going to basically make it very easy for myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start off with a random number, and then I'm going to use my little trick again by moving the cursor to the bottom right, getting the little black cross, dragging it down to cell B13 in this case, and then going here and then changing the auto fill to fill series, and I'm just going to select a different number up here, 48, completely random, and do exactly the same down here. Okay, so fill series. I can do the same going across this way as well. See, I could do that. If I release it, I get 48, or if I can go down here, I get fill series, where I can change it to 49 and 50. I want a little bit, something a little bit more interesting than that. So I'm just going to change those figures to to those, and then I'm going to do exactly the same down here, fill series, fill series. Okay, and then another random number. So again, just coming down, and then all of a sudden there's all of my data. Now obviously it might take you a little bit longer than that if you're, say, taking the figures out of daily sales records from a ledger or something like that, but that basically gives you the small amount of data that I actually wanted to produce this table with. So the next thing to note is that I have two total columns here. So what I want to do basically is add up two total, well, total column and total row. I want to add up all the columns and all the rows. So how do I do that? Well, there are two ways you can do that. The first way would be to click in a cell like that, and then type equals, and then click on the first cell that you want adding up, then click on the type on the plus button and move to the next cell, click on that, and you can see up here we've got B2 plus B3, hit the plus button again, B4, plus button again, B5, and so on and so forth. And it's very laborious, and you can very easily make mistakes, and you can fall asleep while you're doing it. I bet you can fall asleep while watching a video of me doing it. But eventually you do get down to the bottom, and when you've got the last cell in, which I have now, B13 up here, just hit the enter button, and hey presto, there is your total. But yeah, it's a little bit laborious. So Excel's actually come up with another way. If you look at the top right up here, we've got something called auto sum. And if I click on that button, what you'll see is something happening down here. So what's happened down here? Well, in the cell that we were in, it's come up with this equals sum, and then some brackets and some numbers and letters and close brackets. If we look at it up here in the formula bar, equals sum, what does that mean? What that means is it wants Excel to add everything up that is in a range of cells, and the range of cells are what's in the brackets. So C2 is this cell here, 2, which is what the colon means, C13, which is this cell down here. Okay, and that's basically all it's doing. If you just press enter, there you are, there's your total. And I can also use a little trick with my little black cross that I did earlier by moving it down to the bottom right of the cell and I've highlighted it and just dragging it across here. And what Excel has done, we've started off with C2 to C13, it's moved it to D2 and D13, E2 and E13, and F2 and F13, which is quite handy really, because that saves you a little bit of work. So I've now got my totals across the bottom, but I also want some totals down here. So I can use the same formula again, this auto sum. So I click on auto sum there, and hey presto, it's come up with A2 to F2. Something not quite right with that, because of course A2 is our week, our week number 1. We don't want that. So we need to remove A2 from the calculation. So two ways of doing that. First of all, we could go up to the formula bar where we've got A2 to F2 and just change that A to B like that. Move the cursor to the end of the formula after the bracket and press enter. And hey presto, there we go. It's now sum equals B2 to F2, which is 128. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is literally just to move the cursor over here to the end where you've got, to the very end where you've got the 2, and you'll see that it's changed from the white cross into 2 little arrows, and you just literally move the range physically over like that, and then press enter. And you see there we've got B3, which is obviously that cell there, to F3, which is what we wanted. You can of course also use our little friend, the little black cross on the right hand side, down to there. So if I release that, that gives us all of our totals for those weeks. We could put a total in there if we wanted. Those totals should actually be the same. So you might actually do a little bit of checking there, and you might do a sum of that one, delete that, and then do a sum of that one. I'm just going to do an auto sum of those there, and that's going to tell me it's 1,866. If I wanted to check these here, I could perhaps bring the cursor down here, do the auto sum again, and then I just basically move the cursor or move the range like that, and hey presto, 1866, which is the same as that. So that acts as kind of like a double check that everything's working okay. I'm going to delete that because I don't really need it. So our table's beginning to take shape now. So what do we need? We want some values now. So this is going to be my total sales value. So maybe looking at the till, I've looked at how much we've taken in week 1, and I found that, for argument's sake, it's £4,500, and week 2 is £6,000, week 3 is 7,500, and so on and so forth. And I'm just making these figures up as I go along. Obviously, these would be real figures. If you were doing a proper exercise for an organisation looking at average sales on a weekly basis, well, that's a little bit low. Let's put that one up a little bit. We'll make that one 8,000. 2 more to go. Let's have one at 3,400, and then the last one will make 6,400. So there's my value of the sales, but of course it's should be pounds and pence. So what we really need to do is put the pounds and the pence in. So if we highlight all of those figures that I've just put in and then right click, we have an option down here called Format Cells. So if I select that option, it brings up this dialog box, which basically allows me to formulate those cells, or to format those cells in the way that I wish. I can have a general cell, I can have numbers, I can have currency, and so on and so forth. I can make them dates, times, percentages, all sorts of things. Even text is quite a useful one, but what I want here is I just want number. We could have the currency. The difference is basically you get negative numbers and positive numbers separated out, and you get a currency symbol which you can choose. But I'm just going to go for number, and I'm going to go for 2 decimal places here. Now you can change that just by moving this up and down, and you can include 1,000 separator if you want, which puts the little comma in there like that. So I'm just going to choose 2 decimal places with the separator and click OK, and that basically changes the column like that. And I can do a sum on that column, an auto sum, and it comes up like that, and that also has formatted to 2 decimal places because that is so. Beginning to get there now, and we've got basically this last column, this average column to work out. So what's an average? Well, it's the total, the total value divided by the total number for the average sale. So thinking back to our basic arithmetic when we had the equals over here, if you remember, we did equals B2 plus B3 plus B4. What I want to do here is just go equals the total value, H2, the divided by key, and then select the total number of sales, and then just press enter, and that gives me my average. And then I can literally just do the same, copy all the way down here to the bottom like so. So here what you see basically where we have the average numbers, but we have 4 or 5 decimal places in every single cell there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to format those again to 2 decimal places by highlighting them all, right clicking down to the bottom, format cells, and then I'm going to choose number, and it's already set up on 2. I'm not going to have a comma this time. I'm just going to click OK, and then all of a sudden I have got my averages to 2 decimal places. So that's the basic figure work, but what I want to do is I just want to make it look a little bit better before I go any further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some lines in, and I'm going to bold this bottom row. So first of all, I'm going to click on the total A4. I'm going to hold my cursor, my left key down, my left mouse button down, and I'm going to highlight the bottom row like so, and I'm just going to click on the B, and all of a sudden they're all bold like that. Now I want a line between the 12 and the total, and I want that line to go all the way across my table like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of those cells again. Now I could use this little tool up here, which is the border tool. And if I drop that menu down, you see you get all different types of borders. So that's one way of doing this. Or I can right click on those cells and I can go into format cells, and you get different options in there with different thicknesses of lines, different types of lines, dotted, dashed and dotted. I can't say it, dashed and dotted. So all sorts of different options for you, and you can basically just select a line and select where you want the line to appear. In this case we want it above, so I'm just going to click there, and it's the thick line there that I've chosen. Click on OK, and when I come back out here you see there's a nice thick black line going all the way across. And if I want to do the same at the top, I could highlight those cells. What I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to use this one, and what we want is the bottom border, this top one here. And then when I move it away, you can see there's a much thinner line there. So if I wanted that thicker line, what I would have to do would be highlight the cells, go into the format cells, and then choose the border, and then I could just basically choose that thicker border and drop it in on the bottom there. So that's basically how you put borders in. So it's beginning to look a little bit more like it now. So what am I going to do next? Well, what I want to do next is I want to think about putting the weeks and the averages into a Word document. Okay, and I want basically something going across the page with week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth, and an average. So something a little bit like this is what I want to produce. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pull out the 2 columns using the copy and paste functions. So I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to go copy. I'm going to right click, highlight this by using my left cursor mouse and dragging the mouse down, right click and go in copy. I'm then going to come over here to cell K1, and I'm going to right click again, and then I'm going to go down here to the pastes. Now paste has a number of different options. I have straightforward paste, I have paste values, I have paste formulas, I have transpose, and I have formatting, all sorts of different options there. So I'm just going to on this occasion just use the straightforward paste, which actually keeps the numbers left aligned the same way that they were over here and puts the week up there, and it also gives me that little line there, which I don't really want, so I'm going to remove that by clicking on that and finding the no borders and clicking on that, so that little border has now gone. So I've got my weeks there, and now I want to put my averages in here. So I do the same thing, left click on cell I1, which is where the average is, drag down the mouse without releasing that left button to I13, release the mouse, right click, copy, go back to where I want to put it, in this case cell L1, right click, and then if I just paste it this time, you will see that all I actually get is these div by 0 or div divided by 0. They're errors, which basically tells me that there's something wrong. So I'm going to clear that out. I'm going to copy it again and paste it again. So copy and paste. What I want here is I want to use the actual values. I could use the formula. That's going to give me an error. It's the values that I want. So you might have to use different paste options to get what you want. So I'm going to click on that, and there basically it's the start of this little table that I want to drop into Word. But I don't want it going down, I want it going across the page. So what do? Well, it's quite easy. I copy it again. I come down here somewhere, say that cell there, which is B18. I right click, I go to paste, and then I use the transpose option. And you can see when I click on that, it goes across the page rather than down the page. So I've got week right the way through to 12, and I can do exactly the same here. Copy, and then I can transpose, and out it goes. The reason why I've done it this way rather than just copying it straight from here is because it would not have been possible for me to transpose it from there in this way. You need to get the values over here before you transpose it. So I've now got the basics of my table. I want to tidy this up a little bit before I drop it into Word. So what am I going to do? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, as these are average values of sales, I'm going to turn these into a currency format by highlighting them all and then right clicking, going to format cells, number, and selecting currency. Make sure it's the pound. Obviously, if you don't want to do it in pounds, if you want dollars, whatever, change it to whatever currency you want and click on OK. And there all of a sudden is my little table with pound signs in. I'm going to center that. I think it would look a little bit better. I'm going to center this one as well, and I'm going to format this so they are left aligned by clicking on that. You see what I'm doing? I'm selecting the cell and then I'm going up here to do whatever the operation it is, or selecting the range of cells like that by pressing the left cursor down, dragging the mouse, releasing it, and then going up here to whatever formula or function I want to use. So there's the basis of my table. I want to put some borders around this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all highlight everything, and then I'm first of all going to click all borders, and that gives me a little table like that. And then I'm going to click on them again, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go into my format cells, and I want to have the outside borders a little bit thicker, so I'm just going to click on them like that. This leaves the inside borders on the thinner line and the outside borders on the thicker line, and click OK, and hey presto, there's my little table. I think what I would like is I would like a thick border on that side as well. So I'm going to go back to format cells, and I'm going to select my thick line. I'm going to come over here, click on that there, and click on OK. Hey presto, there's my table ready to drop into a Word document. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open a Word document, a new blank document. I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to highlight all of these like that, which is then what I want to do. Now, I've got two options when it comes to copy. I could right click and just copy there, or I could come up here and copy from there. Copy or copy as picture. Sometimes you might want to copy things as a picture, particularly if you're producing graphs, or you might just want to copy. I just want to copy on this occasion. So I'm going to go back, having copied it into my Word document, just going to tab down a bit, and then I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste. Okay, now you'll notice immediately there that's gone off the edge of the page. So before we do that, let's just change the layout of that landscape, and then let's try that paste again, and there we go, one little table in Word. So that's the end of this video, which basically has taught you through some of the basics. I'm going to save that Word file. I'm going to save it in this particular Excel videos. I think I call it basic table. Whoops, help if I can spell. Like so. I'm then going to close it, and I'm then going to just click on the save button, which basically saves all of this. So there's my completed table, which I've then taken out and dropped into a Word document. And that's going to be a very important skill, actually, copying and pasting into a Word document, because you will do a lot of your analysis and your data analysis using Excel or maybe even using SPSS, but you will present your analysis in a Word document or maybe in a PowerPoint document. So you need to get used to the idea of copying and pasting data, not just as we did here and here in Excel spreadsheets, but also between Excel and Word or Excel and PowerPoint. Anyway, that's it for today for this video. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording.